a video on spicy chicken wings. So these are the chicken wings from the 3 chickens that I prepped the other day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a video on what I do with chicken wings. Also kind of segues into other things as it always kind of does. So I also made some stock from the chicken carcasses, and I've got the stock and the rendered fat on top of it. So we need to sort that out. But chicken wings, pretty straightforward. What I'm going to do is I'm going to poach them in the stock that I made. I'm going to season the stock, and then we're going to poach the chicken wings to cook them all the way through, make them tender, and kind of get the excess fat out of the skin as well. So it kind of serves 2 purposes, and also because we're going to do it, it's going to season the stock, it's going to get some seasoning into the chicken wings as well. And then when we're going to pull them out when they're cooked, and then when they're slightly cooled, I'm going to dust them in a mixture of plain flour, which is just cheap, plain supermarket flour, and some curry powder. So I've got a ratio of 100 grams of plain flour and 20 grams of mild curry powder, which is what we're going to dust them in. And then what will happen is the chicken wings will cool down in that flour, and they'll take on some of that flavour. And then what will happen is some of the moisture will want to come out of the chickens and kind of like make the flour a little bit sticky. So we'll dust them again, and we might even dust them a 3rd time in the flour, so they kind of build up a kind of concentrated batter on the, it's not really a batter, but like a coating on the outside. And then we'll deep fry them once they're kind of cold. Because also they are cooking, they're already cooked all the way through. It's just a simple case of frying them quickly, just to kind of get that crispy outside on them. So just move that out of the way. So I rendered the fat down as well. So this is the stock and the fat. So it's a good idea, if you're mucking around with rendering fat and all those type of things, to store it. If there's any kind of moisture, it'll want to, the fat itself will keep for quite a long time, but any kind of contact with the air and any kind of moisture in it will want to make the fat go rancid over time. So it's best to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to like kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So I'm going to heat the fat. It's got a little bit of the stock in it, but that's fine. I'm going to heat the fat just to make it sterile, and I'm going to pour it into a clean jar, and then it'll store in the fridge for ages and ages. I need a spoon. I'm making a mess of this as always. Yes, no, I don't need a spoon. I can just scrape that off. So it'll store, once I put it in a nice clean jar and it's all been heated, it'll keep in the fridge for ages. So I don't need to worry about put it in the freezer or anything like that. And then it's just there when I need it. So chicken fat's really good for making roast potatoes. Really good for also kind of preserving things. So if you want to do like confit duck legs, I did some pheasant legs, so really kind of good for that. Also, yeah, roast potatoes, if you get enough of it together, it makes really good chips. But any kind of frying, that type of thing, it's just one of those things. I don't like waste, so I will always want to render the fat down of things. So this isn't really to do with chicken wings, it's just a little part of it. Oh, there we go. Gas didn't want to work today. So we'll heat it, and then we'll pour it into a clean container, and then it'll store, let it solidify, and it'll keep in the fridge for ages. But obviously I'm kind of doing that at the same time because I can do it in this pan, and I can quickly wipe out the pan, and then we can melt that stock. So I'll do this a little bit, you don't need to see it, and then we'll melt the stock, and that's what we're going to cook the chicken wings in. So I'll put some timer. You don't want to see, it's pointless seeing this kind of bit. So I normally don't put some date stamps in, or time stamps, but I'll put a time stamp in, so you can fast forward through bits that you don't want to see. So if you're interested, fat has melted, come up to temperature, and I've just poured it into that jar. It will keep in that jar with a lid on it in the fridge for months. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, that's what you can do. So the stock has melted, it's coming up to the boil. So I'm going to season it. I've tasted it. It's not particularly a strong stock, so it needs. I'm going to season it like I would do for vegetables, if that kind of makes sense. There is a proper ratio of how much salt you should add per litre of water. I can't remember what it is. I used to be able to remember it, but I can't anymore. So it's just kind of wants to be, the water wants to be a little bit over salty. That's because what's going to happen is the chicken's going to take on the flavour of the salt. Needs a bit more. So some people are probably horrified about how much salt goes in, but it's just how it is. You live your own life the way you want it, in my opinion. So what's going to happen is it'll be salty enough now. So we'll put the chicken in. I don't really want to touch it with my hands because I'll end up having to wash my hands again. So chicken goes in. Give it a stir around with a spoon. And that one will be fine. Just so all the wings are separate. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring it back up to the boil, and then we're going to slowly poach it until the chicken wings are nice and tender. And I'll show you what they look like when they're nice and tender. They will seem overly soft when they are when I bring them out of the stock. But what happens with things once they cool down is they firm back up. So they'll be almost on the verge of falling to bits, but that'll be fine because when they cool, they will firm back up. It just means they are super tender. Also, what we're doing as well, if I didn't have the stock, I'd just use salted water to do this. But what also we're doing as well is some of the flavour from the chicken is going to leach out into the water as well, and it's going to lose some gelatin as well. So this process is actually also going to improve my stock as well, and then I'm going to use stock for something else. So if I was just using salted water, what I would do is actually keep, once I poach the chicken wings, I would keep the salted water because it'd be like a mild stock, and then I would use that for something else, like a base for a soup or a stew or something along those lines, because I just don't like waste. Also, we're gonna some of the fat's going to render out from it as well, so that'll come to the top, and then we've got a little bit more fat that'll skim off, and I can use for other things because I don't like waste and its flavour, and so it's just one of those things. So these are going to probably take about 15-20 minutes. I'll just keep an eye on them, but coming back up to the boil, so just turn them down. Doesn't matter if the lid's on or not, so that spoon can live in there, so I don't need to rest on something. Right, so the chicken wings that I pulled off the chickens kind of work out kind of quite expensive. You can buy them for, I looked online and it was, no, actually it's cheaper. They're cheaper to buy them on the chicken. So you buy them and they're about £2.80 for a kilo. So there was 6 in there. They weighed, how much did they weigh? 600 grams. So they weigh about 100 grams each. So for a kilo, you're probably going to get 10. But you buy them in the supermarket for about £2.80. This isn't particularly going to be the cheapest dish compared to other things, but I think for a change and a light kind of snack, it's kind of quite nice. So they're probably going to work out at about 80p, something like that, 80p for 3, because there's not much cost in the curry powder and the flour and the oil that you deep fry them in. You get to use it again. So we'll just turn that up a little bit. So not kind of the cheapest thing to kind of do with chicken, but it's unless you're going to actually roast them, the whole chicken, and eat the wings off the chicken, then this is just something to do. So if you're having roast chicken on a regular basis, just kind of cut the wings off, freeze them. When you've got plenty of wings in the freezer, defrost them, and then do this process. Also, once we've cooked them and coated them in the flour, you can then freeze them at that stage. Pull them out of the freezer when you want them, defrost them, and they're good to go. Once they're defrosted, you just fry them in the fryer, and you can't really tell the difference if they are cooked fresh and then fried, or you're frozen and then fried. So that's just another kind of thing. I don't know why I'm saying these things. It's just, I don't know. I find that kind of thing interesting. So therefore, someone else must do. You know, I'm not entirely that much of an oddball. But anyway, so we'll poach these for about 20 minutes, so they're nice and tender, and then we'll pull them out. We'll probably skim off any kind of scum or oil that comes to the top. We'll skim off that first, and then we'll pull them out, let them cool slightly, and then dust them in the flour a few times. But it's pretty straightforward, and that's about it for now. Right, so the chicken wings are now cooked. I'll show you how we know there's only me, we know they're cooked because, move that there, we can just pinch that meat and it comes, it's nice and tender and it pulls away relatively easily. Alright, that bit. And then also, it starts to split just there, right where the joint is. That skin starts splitting there, so we know that they're now nice and tender. So when they're still warm, what we'll do is we'll dust them. Change my mind, we'll dust them in the flour now. It'll make a little bit of a mess, but what happens is as things cool down, as you can see all that steam's coming off those, they actually lose moisture. So if we're going to coat them in the flour now, it will stop them from losing that moisture. So we'll do 2 at a time, and I'll get messy fingers. So into the flour, which I've mixed. So it was 100 grams of flour and 220 grams of mild curry powder. Use whatever spices and herbs that you've got. Make it as hot as you like, in my opinion. So you could just boost it up with some chili powder or some hot paprika, something like that. That would work really well. Once you've used the flour to dust all the chicken wings, there's going to be a little bit of chicken residue in the flour, so it's not really suitable for anything else, and it doesn't really keep either. So that probably, there you go, that's a better example. So as you can see there, the joint split there. Can you see that? No, you can't really see that because it's making a mess of the camera. So so you can see that that's split a lot better as that one, so you know that's going to be really tender. So into the flour. Yeah, so the flour, once you've dusted the chicken in it, it's not really suitable for anything else. If you're going to use it the next day, fine, but you can't keep this and reuse it for something else and think it's going to be okay in a week's time, because it will start to go mouldy. So just be careful of that. I don't like throwing things away, but when it comes to things like that, I'd certainly throw this away after I've used it. So we'll see how much flour we need to do all this. I might need to top it up with a bit more flour, or I might need to adjust the recipe, kind of tell you, because I'll tell you how much the bare minimum is, because there's no point making more than you actually need and then having to throw it away. So dust these in the flour, making a mess of my fingers as well, but it all cleans, so that's fine. That's fine. Right, so they're dusted. They're going to cool down, and then we'll dust them again. I just need to see, it's sticking really kind of quite well, so that's fine. So we'll cover those, and then we don't lose any moisture. It'll also make the flour sticky again, so it's better for the next dunking in the flour. That stock, as I've tasted it, and it's really kind of quite nice. So it's taken on the flavour of the chicken and the salt. So if I were to make a soup out of that, it would be an absolutely delicious soup. Or we'll do soup, stew, cook vegetables in it. So if I was cooking vegetables for a meal, I would cook my vegetables in that, and then the vegetables would take on that chicken flavour, and the stock would take on the vegetable flavour, and then you can use that for something else and make the gravy out of it, type of thing. So don't waste anything like that. So I've made a mess of my hands, so I'll stop, and we'll come back for the second dusting and decide if we're going to do a third dusting. So chicken wings have cooled, so we'll give them another dust in the flour. So as you can see, the flour has become a little bit moistened. So that means that we can get a bit more flour stuck to it, because we want to build up that kind of outside crunchy layer. So we'll give them another dust in the flour. Cover them again, just because we cover things so things don't fall on them. And then we'll probably give them another dust of flour just before I cook them, which is just going to be in some cheap vegetable oil. I'm not going to cook them. I'm not going to fry them in like animal fat, because it's just going to ruin the fat having this spicy mix on the outside. So a bit more on there, a bit more on there, and then that's that. So messy fingers, making a mess of my phone. We'll just give these a third dipping in the flour because there's some bits that look like they'll take a bit of the flour. I've been out, I popped in somewhere and I did notice that you can buy chicken wings a little bit cheaper than I originally thought. It was a different supermarket, so I'll cost them at the cheaper price and kind of get kind of an idea. The fat is I'm going to say about 180. I haven't measured it because I haven't got a temperature probe. Well, I have, because I can't bother getting it out of the drawer. But I've dropped something in, and that looks like it's frying quite crisply. So it looks like we're about ready. So just bang off the extra flour, and we'll just dip them in. We'll do 6, and we'll see how we go. Obviously, I'm being extremely dangerous by doing this on top of the stove in hot oil. I would strongly advise you to buy a proper deep fat fryer, but I like to live a little dangerously. Those out of the way. Don't want to take long, so we might as well watch them cook. And also I need to keep an eye on them in case the pan explodes and destroys me and the kitchen. But the pan's probably a little bit too full, but I'd highly recommend that you buy a proper deep fat fryer rather than throw caution to the wind like I do. Can't think of it. Oh yeah, so we'll talk about seasoned flour while we're here. So it always kind of quite astounds me that people season the flour that they're going to dust things with, and they put salt in it, and then they think that's going to be enough salt to season what they dusted the flour in. So if you dust fish in flour and then fry it, people put a little bit of salt in the flour, dust it in the flour, and then they think that's going to be enough to season the fish. It's not. I always kind of find that a bit of a ridiculous thing to do. Much better to season the fish first, then put it in flour, and then cook it, in my eyes. But we don't need to season this flour, because what we've already done is we've already cooked the chicken wings in the salted. Just need to turn that down. We've already cooked the chicken wings in the salted stock, so the chicken wings are already seasoned salt-wise. So we just need to put the crispy coating on the outside and have the spice in that. So that kind of makes sense. So there was no need with the flour. Once you've added the curry powder, there's no need to put any salt in because the salt's already in. The salt's already seasoned the chicken because it was in the stock that we cooked the chicken in. So we'll have a quick look, see how we're doing. Hello, looking good. Just control things a little bit. It's what's it on? About a medium flame. So it's quite a big gas yet, and it's on a medium flame, if that kind of makes sense. I think there was lots of fires in the UK in the 60s and 70s and 80s through people using chip pans. We don't particularly have that problem anymore because people bought themselves deep fat fryers. So we have got something to talk about, so we can have a look at the stock while we're here. This isn't particularly a video on stock, but as you can see, that's the stock from the 3 chicken carcasses and then cooking the chicken wings in. So as you can see, it's quite gelatinous. So it wasn't as gelatinous as that when I put the chicken wings in, so it's absorbed a little bit of the gelatin from the chicken wings. So it's just that made it just that little bit more gelatinous and a little bit more flavourful as well. So it's not to do with spicy chicken wings, but it's a bit something of interest as always. Stocks freeze really easily and really well, as a side note. So I'm going to stick that in the freezer, and then it's ready for next time I want to use it. Right. We'll turn that heat up and we'll get these crispy. I mean, all we're really doing now is crisping them up on the outside and making sure that they're hot right through to the centre. That's all this process of deep frying is there for. I suppose places like KFC use a more like a batter to coat their chicken with, whereas this is just a flour stroke rub. So it'll be slightly different. It's not going to be KFC, but spicy chicken wings will be nice. Welcome to the Deep Fat Frying channel. It's just a normal vegetable that I'm using for this. It's not olive oil or anything. It's just vegetable oil. Nothing special. And it's going to take on the flavour of the chicken and the spices is this oil. So it's not really suitable for anything else afterwards. Oh, let me see, there you go. That could have been dangerous. Almost there. When deep frying you want to be careful. Everything needs to be dry when you put it into the pan. It doesn't want to have any moisture whatsoever. That's where you're going to get explosions. I have got a deep fat frying. It's just I can't be bothered with it. Nearly there. I'll put a timestamp in this, and then you can you can see in the description at what stages. So what we call it. You don't need to see it frying for 5 minutes until they're ready. If you listen to this now and you haven't seen the timestamps in the description, I apologise for wasting 5 minutes of your life. So, if you have watched the video of me prepping the chicken, you'll see now that you get that lovely, the way that I prep the chickens, you get that lovely bit of meat there as well as the chicken, wing. So you kind of, I tend to get more meat on my chicken wings. The ones in the supermarket don't have that extra bit of meat on. Don't that bit. They're just the 2 bits of the wing. Whereas I can, mine is just that little bit better than the supermarket. I should have the extractor on, but I don't want to shout over the top of it. So, right, those are nice and crispy. So, heat off. Drain the chicken, get rid of most of the drips, and then into a bowl with kitchen paper in. The smell absolutely delicious. Extra drips off. There we go. Doing these two, and then we're going to put a lid on, and then nothing can fall in it. And we'll put it at the back of the stove. Go, that's there. That's out of the way. Not too hot to touch. Back of the stove, so they're out of the way. There we go. So, we'll break into them. We'll risk it for a biscuit. So, as you can see, they are hot. I'll get some paper. put it somewhere. That's there. So now they're cooked, we'll just tear into one and you'll be able to see. Should let them cool down slightly, but as you can see, nice and tender, really nice and juicy inside. There's got lots of nice coating on the outside, it's all kind of crispy. I used a mild, see, nice and tender like that. They're just going to pull to bits. Very difficult to kind of do that if you're going to cook them from raw in the oil. Difficult kind of thing to do. So that's why I always cook them in stock or salted water first. I used a mild curry powder. So if you're wanting to, if you've got like a palate that you really like kind of things really kind of quite nice and spicy, certainly use a hot curry powder or some chili powder, or what's it like? I forgot the other, not chili powder, but like you can get really hot cayenne pepper as well. By all means, spice it up as much as you want, but I find a mild curry powder just nice. So there we go. I don't think I need to say more. I don't think there's anything more to say, but there we go. Crispy, spicy chicken wings.